Chinese boxing, or Wushu, developed over 3,000 years in possibly one of the oldest civilizations in the world today. It is essentially about fighting and about the transference of energy from one part of the body into that of another. There is a saying from Da Tao Tue, which said, when we fight, we first use bullets. When the bullets are gone, we use bayonets. When the bayonets are dull, we use the rifle barrel. When this is broken, we use our fist. And when our fists are broken, we bite. In Wushu, everything from the teeth to the legs are used in combat. In the following stanzas, we see the different elements of Wushu. The different elements being the crane, the tiger, the leopard, the dragon, and the snake. As the names suggest, these are animal forms, and the animals play a significant role in the development of Wushu, Kung Fu, today. To those of you who practice karate, some of these stances may be familiar. This is simply because karate developed from the Chinese martial arts. There are many styles of Kung Fu, and the two proponents demonstrating here show these forms. Again, the dragon, the snake, the crane, the tiger, and the leopard are being demonstrated here. Note the position of the legs and the torso. The hand positions, although important, are less significant than the role the hips play in the movement. In the Chinese martial arts, there are two main differences in the Chinese martial arts. We have the internal styles and the external styles. The external styles rely on external power, i.e. using the musculature of the body, and the internal styles require the use of qi, or internal energy. The forms are therefore softer in appearance than the external forms. Some forms combine elements of both, the hard and the soft. These forms are later developed in Okinawa into a style of karate known as Goju Ryu. Here we see the strikes of Kung Fu. Kung Fu simply means to work or to exercise. Again, the styles of the tiger and the crane, the leopard, the monkey and the dragon are characterized here. Here we see a variety of strikes, hook punches and forward strikes. Notice the similarity of the stance with that of the karate stances. This is a back fist strike employing the use of the foreknuckle. This is a knife hand block, followed by the salute and finish. Many of these styles developed in the Shaolin Temple. Once thought of as a legendary place, it was in fact in existence in Fujian province in China, and many of the martial arts of China grew and developed there. The modern Shaolin Temple is now training in China itself, with a full contingent of monks and students practicing the martial arts of old. Here we see the blocks and counter-attacks, employing the use of the horse stance throughout. The links between the martial arts are tenuous. Finishing with the salute. Again, an attack with a punch, counter-attack, block, and a very flamboyant roll. This theatrical element is important in the development of Wushu. Allows the opponent to develop agility, flexibility, and speed. Awareness is an extremely important part of training. Not for one moment does the instructor take his eyes off the student when practicing sparring. This would be the case in real combat. Here we see the use of a chicken fist, and this is usually characterized by the mantis style of Kung Fu. A takedown and a finish. Here we see how a student develops the body through a variety of techniques. Many of these techniques appear to have come from the capoeira system, which is strictly a Brazilian style of fighting and not a Chinese system. The Chinese will take on board many different things and adapt them to suit their own needs. This form we are seeing here at the moment is a typical theatrical Wushu performance, with backflips, forward somersaults and very flamboyant kicking techniques. The blocks we're about to see derive from a Wing Chun system of combat. Again, a Shaolin system developed by a nun. Here we see the inside block and now the outside block. This form is very similar to the Silum Dao of the Wing Chun, although this appears to have been adapted slightly for the purposes of Wushu. All of these movements are being practiced slowly, without tension. This is the internal aspect of the form. They are obviously practiced again with tension, using the breath as a medium of focus. The chicken head block there. And now with a partner. The application of these techniques is extremely important. Sometimes practiced with an opponent, or sometimes on the wooden dummy. The forearm is hardened and toughened through constant practice and the application of medicinal herbs. Medicine and fighting play an important role in Chinese methods. These opposites are characterized by the yin and yang symbol used in Chinese philosophy. The hard and the soft, the dark and the light, the male, the female, and of course healing and destruction. Any Kung Fu instructor worth his salt will train not only how to destroy but also how to heal an opponent. This is an important concept that must be remembered in Wushu. In the stances we see a definite rising and falling motion. This is characterized by four energies: the Pu, the Tim, the Tu and the Tun. The Pu is to float, the Tim is to sink, the Tu is to spit, and the Tun is to swallow. At first sight these energies may not seem important, but in fact are fundamental principles to be studied in Wushu. The sinking energy we see here moves into a rising or floating energy, providing power to the technique. Here we see a small group practicing the blocks of the particular system practiced. Palm heel strikes, wrist strikes, hooking blocks and takedowns all play a role in Wushu. Here we see an attack to the groin against a roundhouse kick. followed up by a throw and an axe kick. Practice all of these techniques with caution, as many of them are seriously disabling or life-threatening. Notice the rising and falling again of the body. This section will include foot sweeps, used in many martial arts. They are also used in Wushu. This is characterized by the monkey style of Kung Fu. The monkey, being a small creature, would spend most of its time leaping around and jumping low on the ground and then rising again. Again, this is the pu and the tim, the floating and the sinking energies. If a system does not contain these elements, it is without real power. Here we see the sweeping techniques being practiced with a partner, dropping the body low, sinking, and throwing the foot through, or the spitting action. When one draws an opponent in, it is thought of as swallowing energy. And when one strikes out, it is the spitting energy. This strike here is aimed to the Achilles tendon and will disable the opponent, giving you time to either run or continue the fight with an advantage. Here we see the techniques practiced in a small group. This is in itself an agility exercise. It can be practiced with 2, 3 or more people. And the salutation at the end. Now we see the application of the foot sweep in combat. The open hand guard is very important in Chinese martial arts. It allows for greater flexibility, like so, and will allow for more power to be developed when applying elbow strikes or wrist blocks. The sweep and slap that we've just seen there is more of a strike than a slap. The techniques being practiced are obviously being practiced at half speed with maximum control. Some of the techniques are very difficult to catch, as they involve very rapid attacks to the eyes and the groin. Here we see a hip takedown, destroying the pelvic area. Again, the salutation is extremely important. A scissor kick, followed by a lock and throw. Again, a fairly modern technique, developed mainly for demonstration purposes. Beautiful to watch, but deadly in combat. Wushu Kung Fu has its place in the Chinese martial arts. Here we see an extremely dangerous technique. A kick to the groin. This section talks about the 1-inch punch. The 1-inch punch was popularized by the late great Bruce Lee and involves the exchange of energy from the rear leg through the hips, out through the shoulders, via the arm, into the opponent, forcing the opponent backwards, like so. Practiced here as a push, it will be practiced actually as a striking technique. Dao. Dao simply means way. There is a saying, Dao ke Dao fei chang Dao. The way that can be followed is not the eternal way. This means that one should find the form within oneself. Although practiced as a group, each man is performing an expression of his own movement. For a martial art to be effective, it must become one with the practitioner. When practicing the form, it is important not simply to simply move from technique to technique, but to have intention behind that movement. What will the strike do? What will the block do? Where is the opponent in relation to this block? How can the block be used as a strike, for example? What may at first appearances be a block may in fact be a strike or a throw. These concepts are important to understand. The kicking techniques of Wushu are large and varied, ranging from low kicks to extremely high kicks through to flying techniques. All are practiced with power, utilizing the hips fully and the chamber position as shown. This kick, incidentally, is a very powerful stamping kick to the knee joint. Notice the open palm. Here's the high roundhouse kick, followed now by the side kick. The side kick can be practiced in a number of ways, either as a snapping kick to simply disarm, or as a disabling kick with a thrust. Even when kicking, do not forget the four energies. Here the kicks are demonstrated against an opponent. Again, these kicking techniques, like the blocks and hand strikes, can be practiced against the wooden dummy. Here's a spinning turning back kick, a side kick, and a skipping side kick. It is important to practice these techniques with an opponent in order for one to judge distance and time their kicks accurately. Now we see the application of the kicks against an attack. Here the Shifu, or master, will block the attack and counter-attack with a kick. Notice how he sinks the body, rises through and spits out the kick, returning the energy to the attacker. In many Chinese systems, it is important to condition the body as well as the mind. Through constant practice and meditation, we condition the mind, and through constant practice and repetition in forms, we condition the body. The palm heel strikes we see here will be conditioned using a variety of herbs or thrusting the hand repeatedly into sand. This is known as sand palm or iron palm training. Here we see a kick being used against a punch. Again, this will obviously destroy the opponent's hand, disabling the attacker. This will allow you to concentrate on the torso and vital points of the human body. Finally finishing with a salutation. Now both men are going through their form together in a sequence that has been handed down over thousands of years. It is a form of controlled sparring, and it allows the teacher to gauge the level at which his student is now working. During the course of the form, he is constantly assessing the level of energy that the student is giving out and responding to it accordingly. Many weapons are used in the Wushu system, and these will be used alongside the free hand and kicking techniques shown. Here we see a scissors kick, which separates the opponent's legs. This will tear the inner tendon of the groin and prevent the attacker from chasing. Notice how clean the area of practice is. This is important, as the kwon, or gym, should represent the cleanliness of mind of the Kung Fu practitioners. Flexibility and stamina again play an important part. Here we see an example of flexibility. Holding the leg out in such a fashion is not an easy thing to do and requires many years of arduous training. Many of the areas attacked with punches and kicks are vital points, as stated previously. The art of attacking vital points is mainly lost, but has gained resurgence in the past few years. Dim mak, or the style of Kung Fu that attacks these areas, is very, very rarely practiced. And now we will see leg techniques. Here, scissors kick, which is a combination sweep and kicking attack to the pelvis. This is a leg locking technique which will obviously damage the knee and hip joint and would normally be followed up with an attack and takedown. These type of techniques are representative of Chin Na, which is the wrestling techniques used in Chinese Kung Fu or Wushu. In many ways, the Jiu-Jitsu forms of Japan developed from these same forms. Here we see a stamp to the knee again. The joints are very popular areas of attack because they contain a large number of nerves, and being a joint, they are easily broken, serving as they do as a weak point for attack. It is not uncommon to find the Wushu practitioner dropping down onto a joint as an opponent falls to the floor, usually with the knee or with the foot. Only occasionally will they attack the body. Here we see a leg locking technique and an arm locking technique together. Notice how the teacher moves in close, tying up the opponent, preventing the legs from being effective. And now with a takedown and shoulder attack. And now defense against a grab. A very simple and straightforward method here with a palm heel strike and leg grip, knocking the opponent sharply to the ground. And the salutation. This section will concentrate on counter strikes and will demonstrate blocks and counters. As we can see here, one man adopts horse stance whilst the other a front stance, although they do from time to time move back into what is known as a cat stance, where the weight is firmly placed over the rear leg, leaving the front leg free for kicking. Notice the power developed in the horse stance. It is often the case for students to practice many hours of standing in the horse stance, practicing punches and blocks. This requires patience and a certain amount of spirit. which is exactly what it is designed to test. Here we see a roundhouse block, followed by a strike low into the rib area, using the 4 knuckles of the fist. The wave motion of the hand is important in developing energy and concentrates the palm into the area of attack. Although long stances are being practiced here, in an actual fighting situation the stances would be much higher. The use of long stances is simply to promote strength in the legs. Here we see an example of crane, standing on one leg. Although looks may be deceiving, it is not an unstable position to fight in when one has been training for a number of years. Inside block followed by a tiger claw. And the tiger claw would strike into the face and across. This again is strengthened by pounding the hand and fingers into hot sand. The crane stance again, this time using the attack with the wrist to the temple. Knee attacks are extremely important in Wushu, as they are in any other martial art, and are practiced in much the same way, whether one practices karate, Wushu, Muay Thai, or Filipino eskrima. Possibly one of the most powerful techniques in any martial art, the knee is pounded into the midsection or the head. Here, the teacher demonstrates the use of rhythm to produce a pounding movement into the opponent. Notice how he springs the foot from the floor each time. This fits in with the concept of the 4 energies. Here, the teacher uses the clinch. Though not widely used in Chinese martial arts, again it plays a significant role in the development of Wushu. Here, the knee attack goes to the thigh, the ribs, and the deltoid muscle of the shoulder. These techniques have been promoted mainly by the Thais. Here we see a defense against a knee, using iron palm or the elbow strike. When practicing these techniques, great caution must be taken, as the elbow will do a tremendous amount of damage to a rising knee. Which moves us on very nicely to the elbow strikes. The elbow is the most powerful weapon in the body, working as it does at close range. And because one is moving in, it tends to smother the opponent's attack and take them, of course, by surprise. Surprise being one of the key elements in effective self-defense. The elbow, because it moves over a very short distance, is an extremely fast weapon to use and should be used with caution. Here we see a combination of block, strikes and kicks. The following is a demonstration again of one-step sparring. The attacker moves in, the defender controls using a rolling energy. Deceptively soft, this is an extremely powerful technique. The footwork is practiced in a number of ways too. There are techniques known as light walk, climbing wall, iron ox, iron sweeper, and of course the use of the wooden man. Chinese have been known to walk on the rims of a large jar filled with water. Gradually the water is drained from the jar, but you should be able to continue walking around the rim of that jar maintaining balance throughout. Jars are actually used to strengthen the grip of the Wushu exponent, and the jar is filled gradually with sand. It is lifted by the rim. These striking techniques harness the power developed through these external training methods. To describe internal training methods would obviously take another tape. Again, the circular movement of the techniques being of paramount importance in deflecting and controlling the attacker's technique. This attack is with a vertical fist, blocked with the elbow, and a chicken fist strike to the eye. These techniques come from the mantis system of Kung Fu. Note the control of the exponents. Here we see a trapping technique, employing the use of the roundhouse kick and a turning back kick. Both practitioners are obviously keeping at a safe distance. A forearm strike and push away with a palm heel. Again, the palm heel would actually be a strike rather than just a parry to do damage, whilst one moves into range to perform the attacking technique. Like so. And that's how it's done. At all times, maintain concentration on the opponent. There we see a knee strike being used as a blocking technique against the knee of the attacker, like so, followed up by a leg sweep. Knee attacks must be practiced with caution. Here we can see how the three ranges of combat are being used. First, the long range, which is primarily used for kicking, whether that's a flying kick or simple thrusting kick. And of course the blocks are being practiced at middle range. Close range techniques would include the use of the knee and the elbow. And here we see the knee being used to great effect against the ankle joint or the Achilles tendon of the attacker. This, interestingly enough, is a technique taken from Muay Thai and involves the use of kicking away the supporting leg of the opponent. Flying kicks, although not essentially effective, have been used for thousands of years in Chinese systems. It is believed that these techniques would have been used against men on horseback, kicking them from the saddle and then disarming them when they were on the ground. All jumping techniques require coordination, skill, and of course balance. Correct technique allows power to be developed. Here we see a jumping front kick aimed at the chin or jaw of the opponent, a spinning hook kick used against the opponent's head, and a turning inside kick used commonly as a block. And now we moved on to the advanced combination techniques of Wushu. Obviously the two proponents are skilled in their art, so any techniques copied must be practiced with caution. Many of the strikes involve the attack to vital parts and vital points on the body. so the techniques must be controlled. Here we see a number of kicking techniques, blocking techniques, and of course counters. Again, these blocks would be practiced with great power and would serve as a disabling attack rather than simply a defense. If one destroys the attacking arm, then that arm can no longer be used for counter-attacks. So there's a certain logic in there. If one takes out 2 or more of the limbs, then the attacker will be in no position to either A, defend himself, or B, continue an attack. These techniques may be practiced for many hours, with students going up and down in lines, honing their technique. Many of these techniques can be used in conjunction with weapons, and some of the open hand forms are actually used with the Taiji sword or with a broadsword. Here we see singing crane technique. Notice the wave-like motion, the wing-like motion of the arms. Aimed at the forearm, disables the attacker. Again at speed. Beautiful yet destructive. Again, circular motion is used to provide power and speed to the technique. The attack here is to the shin or the knee of the opponent. The characters we see on the gym wall are Kung Fu, which as stated earlier means exercise or training. Here we see more crane techniques, standing on one leg, developing balance and control. And the two proponents move alternately. The Shaolin salute to either finish or start a session of training. Here we see a cross step into a cat stance, which can be used to attack the front foot of an opponent who moves into range. So even in the salutation, techniques are hidden. Here's a joint striking technique. This is aimed at the ulna, or the radius, of the attacker's arm, serving as to disable the attacker and put him out of commission. Wood breaking is a useful gauge for the student to measure his power by. Although not difficult to actually practice, it can be quite dangerous. This should not be attempted at home. That was a 1-inch piece of pine. Obviously the hands of the practitioner are conditioned to a fair degree. Here we see the salutation. And an example of the tiger form. Often a salutation will include elements of the 5 animals. Here we see a pole being broken over the arm of a Kung Fu practitioner. Quite amazing. Only after many years of training should one allow this to happen. Here we see 3 inches of dowel. This time the shin is used. The crane posture. And now for the braking. And just to make absolutely sure there's nothing up his trouser leg, we can see the shin. Under no circumstances should this be practiced. And that concludes our tape on Wushu Kung Fu. I'd like to thank you for watching this, and look for more films in the series from Kickfighting Films.